Okay, good morning. We're starting a new simon today, simon Reish Nun Dalet. Dinei Tafshilin Hamuchonim Erev Shabbos Kedei Ligom v'Shabbos. Food which is prepared in Erev Shabbos, which will finish off over the course of Shabbos. Says the Machaba, Aleph. Afal pi sheboso chai mutal hashay. So we said previously that raw meat you are allowed to do shehiyah, which means you're allowed to leave the pot on an open flame from before Shabbos, and we're not worried that come Shabbos you might come to stoke the flames, and either going to start cooking or going to be over issues of havara, like we discussed previously. Avol betzli, that's hanimili b'kadeira. Then when did we say that basar chai, raw meat, we're not worried about it? That's when it's in a pot, because raw meat is going to take so long to cook, even stoking the flame is not going to really help you. Avol betzli, if it's roasted, she'etz ala aish. Imagine you've got some meat which is roasting near an open fire. That we are worried about. Also lahanichai samach lechashecha. You can't leave it. Put it there close to Erev Shabbos. Because that cooks much more quickly, and there is a real concern that you might come to be mechata, to stoke the coals. Which meat are we talking about? Basar shar or eiz, where it's strong, tough meat, which needs a long time, which will be cooked. If it's sli, it will be cooked. If you're mechatet, it will expedite the cooking. Avol basar gediva oif shehem munusachim nevarim. But if you got chicken or goat or gedi is like a young goat, which cook more quickly, shehem munusachim nevarim, which were cut into pieces, muta. Why? We're not worried you're going to be mechatze, you're going to stoke the coals there, because if you do, the meat will burn. So therefore, it's chicken meat, and on a barbecue or on an open flame, it's going to cook really quickly. So being mechatze the gecholim is going to be detrimental to you. You just need to warm it up. You don't need a stronger fire. Okay, let's do the Mishnah Berurah till that point. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Katan Aleph. I'm be'alocha shevenu sugyus hagemar bekitzel levaer divrei hamachaba v'arav be'elu shtei ha'seifim. Okay, there's a long bir halacha giving the whole background introduction to this whole sugya. It's not such a nogeya sugya, so I don't think we need to do it. It takes quite a bit of time. Aleph mutala hashoisei. So we said that even though we said basar chai, we're not worried about shehiyah, and you can put it basar chai on an open flame. Hainu shemuta litin lechatchila lahashoisei al gabe kira v'tanur. We're not worried about shia, and even if the oven is not gar for kaltum, you can put basar chai, raw meat there. To kiven shel chai, since the meat is raw, mesiach daitem menu, you're going to take, your mind will sort of be diverted from it because you're not going to start messing around with it tonight. And therefore the whole night it will cook, and then Shabbos morning the food will be ready, and we're not worried you're going to be mechata. But if we're talking about meat which is next to an open fire, even if you're cooking it in an oven with an open fire, and the oven is closed, but it's not sealed in. In those days, they would take cement and they would seal up the oven to make sure that it retains the heat and no wind comes in and damages it. So there, if it's tuach batit, you're not worried about shem yechatze. You're not going to break it open on Shabbos. So chashin sheigale hakisui, that's in a case where the tanur is mechusa but just not sealed. Chashin sheigale hakisui, we're worried you'll just open it. V'yechatze sham b'kecholim, and you'll stoke the coals to accelerate the cooking. She'etzel ha'esh la'afuket slikedar. That is next to the fire, which excludes slikedar. Slikedar is quite a common term in the Gemara. It's a common way of cooking back in the day. And if you look at number 1, he explains slikedar. Rashi says in Pesachim Mem Aleph, shehu basar shemavash lemoso b'kadeira below mayim. It's in English you call it pot roast, I think, where you cook it in a pot without any water. V'sham mashkim ela b'mayim haneflotim mishmeino. In other words, it cooks in its own juices. So you don't add any water or any other liquids. You put it in a pot, close it, and it's pot roast. It will cook in its own juices. The dinner is back to the Mishnah Berurah Sif Cotton Gimel. She'etlo eitz the lafuketz dikedo. Dinner kadera. It's got a dinner of kadera or mutala hashoyse b'chai, and therefore you can do shia if it's raw. Gam ma'at gam miet hamachaba bezeh. Im noisna gabi ho'eish mamish. If you put it properly on top of the fire, like really on top of the fire, not next to, but on top of. The sham afilu b'basa gedi also there. Even basa gedi will be also chudakam v'sif beis ayin shamatan. Also lanichai. So we said that although we said shehiyah for basa chai is going to be okay, but sli, which means you're putting the meat next to the fire. Also lanichai saman chashecha says in Mishnah Berurah Sif Cotton Dalet. Also lanichai im lo sheyesh shehuz mibayidiyim liyas nitz lekolkach. Unless, of course, you haven't got a shehiyah problem. What does that mean? That there is time before Shabbos that it will cook. Either it will cook fully sheim stomach viralo, that any further cooking will actually be detrimental. And that goes according to the first shitta in Reish Nun Gimel. Remember, we had two opinions in the beginning of Reish Nun Gimel. How cooked does the food have to be to overcome the problem of shehiyah? According to the first opinion, it is the Chachamim, i.e., it's got to be fully cooked in stomach viralo. According to Chananya, it's going to be Michael ben Drusay. How do we actually paskin? So if you look at number 5, an important summary, if you like, in number 5, he says, Kosav b'bi halacha, that the halacha is shlachatchili yesh lahachme kedei rishona. We should be machme when it comes to shehiyah, like the first opinion there, the Chachamim, that it should be in a special kortzarkai. If it's running late, could go in Shabo Archim and then guests show up and you need to put more food on. You've got to cook for them. You're allowed to be makel and to do shia. You can be semech on the shit of Chananya that it's nispasha, that it's Michael ben Drusai, and that is cooked, half cooked. Kedas Sashnia, like Chananya's shitta. That's the Mishnah Berurah in Bihalacha. For Chazan Ish, Sideid, Shaflechat Chile, Efshalahaka Lasha, Zatav Shalei Spashal Elek Michael Ben Josai. So it's a very, I don't think I mentioned it at the time, maybe I did, I can't remember, but it's important machlokas between the Mishnah Berurah and the Chazan Ish, whether or not you should, how you pass when it comes to shehiyah. The Mishnah Berurah says the Chatchila you should go like the Mechaba, that it should be fully cooked before Shabbos. And the Chazan Ish says no, lechatchila we pass like Chananya, that was the Ramah, and that you can be semech on the fact that it's Michael ben Drusai. We're talking about an oven which is not gar for cotton. Again, most of our ovens or crock pots or whatever are going to be gar for cotton, so it's not a problem. Okay, all right. So let's go back to the Mishnah Berurah. Shemamah is bashal. So we said that if it's next to the fire, it's going to cook much more quickly, and therefore, also lechatuya, you might come to do chitu, you might come to stoke the coals. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Hay, Kosva achreinim b'siman reish and gimel, demine kitniyos v'yirokos. You've got beans and vegetables, or shad dvoim rakim, afilu b'kadeira memarin is bashal. Even in a pot, they cook quite quickly. It's dafka raw meat. V'alkein afilu b'chai chashin Hashem yichata. V'ayin lekaman b'sif ches u'be'halocha sham. If it's next to a flame, it will cook more quickly. But bossa shar, shehu bossa kosher. When is that true? When it's very tough meat. Bossa shar, like ox meat. Bossa kosher, v'tzorech bishul b'yosef, v'chashin lechatoye. Ava bossa gedi, hanu gedi harach, which is much softer and tender, more tender. Shehem menusachim, which are cut up. Avalim einem menusach tzorech bishul k'shar v'oez. But if it's not cut up, if you've got a whole goat, a young goat, or a whole chicken, then it won't cook as quickly as if it was cut up into pieces, and then there will be a chashash of chitui. Muta beinim hu chai legamre nispashel kasas v'chatam b'gabaga. Okay, shem yechatze sif cotton yud lefi tam zeh ein chiluk beinim tzoleh betano shepiv mechusa. There's no difference between an oven which is closed or is just in an open fire. Kol shari, that would be okay. If it's ox meat, it's going to take a long time to cook, and therefore we're not worried shem yechatze. Aval yesh machmirin delekam b'haga. We'll get there in the Ramah. Sovereign that they hold that they only allow the gedi and oif in an oven which is closed. The only kula is that it's not sealed. Then we say that with the gedi and oif, opening the oven, which is going to let the wind in, will be detrimental to the cooking. And the guy won't open the oven. Megula aloish, but when you cook it, you roast it open on a fire, gam chashin lechatui. We're choshish for chitui, even with gediva oif. Okay, let's go back to the mechaba. We're up to the fourth line. Now, ve'imu betanur v'toch piv batit. If you're talking about an oven which is sealed, bein gedi v'oif shleimim, bein basa shar v'ois, whatever your meat, mutter, there's no problem. We're not worried that you're going to be mechata. She'im bo liftech hatana, because if you come to open the oven, v'lachta is tikonis haruach v'yitzlan natana v'yiskasha bosa v'yafsid, because if you open the oven, that's going to be bad news. Cold wind will get in, and it will ruin the meat, and it will spoil the cooking. So we're not worried about that. Hagos says the Ramah, ve'ein chiluk bein bezeh beinim hu chay legamre and especial ktsas. We're not worried about how, if it's totally raw, if it's minimally cooked. So long as the animal is whole, then it's called whole. Now, v'yesh machmirin, this is what the Mishnah was referring to. V'yesh machmirin v'soivrin, but the betanur tuach batit, if it's sealed, the oven, hakol shari, everything is okay. V'al gabi ha'esh u'megula hakol also, and on an open fire, everything is also. Of a tanur shepiv mechusa, and an oven which is closed, ela she'ena tuach batit, but is not sealed, oz yesh lechalik ben gedi oif l'shar basa k'derech shenisbaya. Then we make a distinction between ox meat, tough meat, and basa gedi oif, which is much more soft. V'hachi nog b'svarzu, and we are noiheg like this shitta. Okay, let's do the Mishnah Berurah. Yud Aleph, v'yiskashe ha-basa. That if it's a tanur which is toch batit, we're not worried you're going to open it because it's detrimental. V'yiskasha bosa, wind will come in and will make the meat hard. But if it's in a pot, says the Mishnah Berurah, you've got Nudalev, lo mahani kasher tuach batit lete'ezu. We're not worried about tuach batit in such an opinion. Lo yiskasha, because we're not worried it's going to get hardened if it's in a kadeira. V'ayin lekame b'hago masik da minag lohakol b'zeh v'mekel d'svirelei kiven she'ena muchen lachtais shari sosmu batit. He's not going to start stoking things, but it's all sealed. Lo yavu lachtais. Yud beis ve'ein chiluk koi akol gavni deheta v'gavni isam evorim b'siv zeh. V'da. The chol zeh davka b'inyanenu the maril inyan sli. We're talking about roasting. Aval inyan kadeira, but if the meat is in a pot, or it's sli keda, or it's in a pot without any water, the gam gain dinner kadeira, that's also got a din of kadeira. Yesh chiluk ben chayil nisbashlu katzas. There is a difference between, if it's in a pot, between raw and when it's minimally cooked. To b'chai, when it's totally raw, if it's totally raw meat, we allow you to put it in the oven close to Shabbos. Bein bosa shar, bein bosa gediva oif. But when it's minimally cooked, then it's a problem. Also, afilu bosa gediva oif shem yechate, because it started cooking, you're minimally cooked, you're worried shem yechate. That we're not worried that it's going to get burnt through stoking. Given the b'kadeirahu, because it's in a pot, it's not exposed, it's not open. But tzorich bishul rav, and therefore it needs a lot of cooking in a pot. If it was open, exposed directly to the flame, then it would go much more quickly. But in a pot, much less so. How do you define slightly cooked, minimally cooked? The first opinion, the Chomim is until it's fully cooked, and any further cooking will be detrimental. Once it gets to MBD, Michael Ben Drusoi, Nikra Bishul Gomer is called proper Bishul, or Mutza Litnei Al Gabe Kira, that's considered cooked. And you can put it on a kira v'tana she'en gar for cotton. Good. Yud Gimel Ktsas. What is this going on? We said ve'ein chiluk bein im huchai legamrin is special Ktsas. Says Mishnah Berurah Yud Gimel. Te'ilu yochel itzolas mibayjom tzoli haroi. If it was able to cook from before Shabbos proper roasting, afilu bosa shar. So even the bosa shar would be no problem. V'hinei le'el b'reish siman reish nun gimel mavua shtei deis. Okay, so then we finish off and we said that the Mechaba says, the Ramah says, the Yesh Machmirin. And Yesh Machmirin v'soivrin de betano tuach batit hakol shari. So that doesn't sound like a chumrah. So says the Mishnah Berurah, Yudaled Rotzalema Afilu B'Kader V'Nispashal K'tzas. Even in a kader which is minimally cooked, we're not worried you're going to open the oven, you're going to stoke, and therefore it's not ready to do chitui. And the Ramah is arguing with Mechaber, who is machmir with her here, or Shemokasham the Besiv Kot Yudalef. For Hodanok the Ramah Velishna Yesh Machmirin, the Ramah says Yesh Machmirin, Afagav Delin Zehu Kula. It's going on the next shtickle. That's what the Ramah is saying. Yesh machmirin. Okay, Tesvov. We're not talking about where it's on the coals. Because even that, the Mechaber will say that's also. That will get there, Mr. on tomorrow. It's near the fire. Beinim soleh betanu shepiv mechusa, beinim soleh begoli etzel ha'esh. Although the daita ein hetza begdi kiim kashesoleh betanur shepiv mechusa kumei shebiarti atam leel besif cotton yud. Okay, so let's just summarize. So what did the Mechaber say? The Mechaber says that even though with basar chai, with raw meat, you're allowed to do shehiyah because you're not worried shemi yechata because it's going to take a long time to cook with raw meat, and you can put it in the chulent before Shabbos, which is not got a gar for cotton, because you're not going to come to stoke it because it will take the whole night to cook. However, that's dafka b'kadeira. But if it's in a tzli, if it's open next to a fire, then even it's osla nicha samach l'chashecha, because you might come to be mechata, and you might come to stoke it, which is of course a problem on Shabbos. But that is true dafka with basar shur, with a meat which takes a long time to cook. But basar gedi v'oiv, which are cut up into pieces, then that would be okay, and you're not worried about chitu, because otherwise you're going to burn the meat. V'yesh machmir, and then we said that if it's a tano which is tuach batit, bein gedi, whether bein basar ois, we're not going to be concerned because you'll break it up, because it will be detrimental to the oven. And then the Ramah comes along and says yesh machmirin, and he says that al gabi ha'esh megula hakol asa, everything is asa, or batala pishev mechusa, and eshen betuach batit oz yesh lechalek. We only differentiate between ox and gedi in a case of a closed oven but just unsealed. Okay, say that.